YouTube, what's going on? It's J&A Exotics and we're back with another video. Now today I wanted to talk to you guys about the top 5 reptiles that I think make a better alternate pet choice than a bearded dragon. Now I could go through this video giving you guys reptiles like crested geckos, gargoyle geckos, leopard geckos, etc. But I don't want to do that. I want to give you guys some reptile choices that are generally going to be the same care, similar enclosure sizes, similar length and size of the reptiles, similar behaviors to an extent. But with that being said, let's jump into the video. Now, number 5 on this list today is going to be the smallest species on this list. And it's going to be probably one of the coolest skinks you could buy. I didn't go with the blue tongue skink because I feel like it's kind of cliche. Everybody picks a blue tongue skink to pick as an alternative to a bearded dragon, but I picked the Schneider skink. Schneider skinks can be found in northern Africa and Central Asia. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, when comparing them to northern blue tongues, they are substantially smaller. They average around 16 inches in length. On the smaller side, they can be 12 inches. On the larger side, they can grow up to as large as 18 inches. Now, one of my favorite things about Schneider skinks, which is also going to be another reason why I put them on this list above northern blue tongues, is going to be the ability to keep them in smaller colonies. Now, they're kind of like emerald tree skinks in a sense, being that as long as you have an enclosure that's properly sized, you have the proper male to female ratio, never house 2 males together, and you provide enough hides and objects in the enclosure so they can get away from each other when they need to, you can have a successful colony. Now, I currently do not own Schneider skinks, although I want to one day. When I have the room to make an appropriate enclosure to house a colony, I'm going to. But when you watch these guys interact with each other on videos, or even the pair at my local pet store, it's incredible. Skinks in general are just awesome lizards. Now, if you do happen to keep these guys in a 2-to-1 ratio, being 2 females, 1 male, or a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 male, 1 female, just be prepared for nature to happen. If the enclosure and habitat is ideal, you're going to get eggs. Now, unlike other species of skinks, these guys do lay eggs instead of giving live birth, which is pretty cool. Now, just like bearded dragons, the minimum enclosure size for Schneider skinks in a small colony is going to be 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. And obviously you need to provide them with branches and hides. A substrate layer, these guys do like to dig and burrow, so provide a thicker substrate layer, maybe around 5 to 6 inches or so. Now, Schneider skinks are diurnal. They're going to be active during the day, and they do require full spectrum lighting. These guys also like it on the warmer side. Their basking spot should be kept around 105 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. They also like moderately low levels of humidity. Under 50% is going to be the ambient humidity in the enclosure. Now, their hides are going to be far more humid than the ambient humidity temperature in the tank. They do like to burrow into humid microclimates if they do need it. Schneider skinks are omnivorous, but they're going to eat mainly insects, crickets, dubia roaches, waxworms, mealworms, etc. Adults can eat pinky mice in moderation. Obviously, pinkies are high in fat, so you do not want to feed them too many of them. And they're also going to eat dark, rich, leafy greens, such as dandelion greens, collard greens, kale, escarole, bok choy, etc. So although it's going to depend on the individual itself, Schneider skinks do tame down to manageable levels, which is great if you want something that you want to hold and interact with. Now, just from daily routine maintenance and consistent handling attempts, done the right way, these guys are going to recognize that you're not a threat, and for the most part, most of them do calm down and warm right up to you. Now, Schneider skinks can live up to 20 years in captivity, so just be prepared to own it for the long run. They're not going to live as long as, let's say, a sulcata tortoise, but 20 years is a substantially long time. Now, number 4 on this list is going to be Uromastyx lizards. Now, these guys are a bit odd. They have a head of a toad, they have a tail of an Achimonitor. They're just bizarre looking, but they are incredible lizards. Now, very similar to Achimonitors, when these guys feel threatened, they're going to wedge themselves in between 2 rocks, they're going to inflate their bodies so they can't get taken out, and the only thing they're going to be left showing is that spiny tail. Nobody wants to bite that. Now, there are a wide variety of Uromastyx lizards, and they can be found throughout the northwest section of India, the Middle East, and Northern Africa. Now, obviously their size is going to depend on what species of Uromastyx you own, but let's take the Egyptian Uromastyx, for example. These guys can reach lengths up to 30 inches in length, which is incredible, and to my knowledge, they are the largest Uromastyx species to walk the earth. Now, a lot of Uromastyx can fit comfortably in a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure, but let's take, again, the Egyptian Uromastyx, for example. This is obviously a much larger species, so you're going to need an enclosure big enough to accommodate its size. These guys do like to burrow, so you should provide a substrate layer deep enough for them to dig and bury themselves. You're going to need to provide rocks, rock formations, branches, cork rounds, etc. for them to climb and hide in and to bask on. Now, Uromastyx are diurnal. They're going to require full spectrum lighting, and they like it hot and dry. Their basking spot should be 120 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, one of the things that I've always been fascinated about with Uromastyx lizards is they are herbivores, and they're going to eat things like S. carol, collard greens, bok choy, dark leafy greens generally, and they're even going to eat seeds. Now, I'm not entirely sure why, but for whatever reason, whenever reptiles eat foods that we eat, it just interests me. Now, when it comes to handling Uromastyx lizards, for the most part, they're generally pretty mellow. Now, generally speaking, in captivity and in good health, Uromastyx lizards live 15 years in captivity, so just keep that in mind before buying one. Now, number 3 on the list is going to be the Sudan plated lizard. Now, these guys are awesome. They are the lizard version of an armadillo. They have this armor that covers their entire body. Now, these guys can be found in Africa, in places like Kenya, Tanzania, and Mozambique. They are the green-keeled bellied lizard's neighbors. Sudan plated lizards average around 18 inches in length. Obviously, it depends on the individual itself. Some stay around 16 inches, while others surpass 18 inches. They can get up to 20 inches in some cases. Now, due to their size, they're going to require a relatively large enclosure like the rest of the species on this list. They're going to require a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure. Now, their ambient humidity in the tank should be kept around moderate to dry levels. Obviously, they're going to get most of their humidity underground when they burrow or in humid microclimates, and these guys do like it on the warmer side, with their basking spot reaching around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. They are terrestrial and they are diurnal. They're active during the day, so they are going to require full spectrum lighting. Now, you are going to have to provide a substrate layer deep enough for these guys to dig and bury themselves, and you're also going to have to provide hides throughout the enclosure, low-lying branches for them to climb on, and just stuff for them to rub up against and get their shed off. Now, these guys are omnivorous. They're going to eat insects and they're going to eat vegetables. Out of everything on this list, I feel like these guys imitate the bearded dragon's diet the most. When they're younger, their diet's going to be mainly insects with some vegetables, and as they get older, it's going to switch over and you're going to offer vegetables more than you offer insects. Now, when it comes to handling, these guys can be skittish, but once they realize that you're not a threat, they can tame down and warm up to you. Now, just from daily routine maintenance and handling attempts, these guys are going to realize that you're the person that brings them food and you're not going to harm them. Sudan plated lizards can live over 20 years, so again, like everything else on this list, if you do plan to buy one, just be prepared to own it for a very, very long time. Now, I've talked about this species before on this channel, but number 2 on the list is going to be Achymonithers. Now, what is there not to love about Achymonithers? It gives you the opportunity to own a monitor lizard without giving up a substantial amount of room in your home. Now, it doesn't matter if you want a yellow Achy or a red Achy, these guys are stunning regardless. They're beautiful creatures. These guys have an arrow-shaped head, a spiny tail that looks like a weapon, and a chunky body. Achymonithers can be found in the northwestern quadrant of Australia, and these guys can get a pretty decent size. They're going to average around 22 to 24 inches in length. Achymonithers can obtain a pretty decent size, so you're going to need an enclosure to accommodate for that. I wouldn't go any smaller than a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure. Like everything else on this list so far, these guys are diurnal, they're active during the day, they're going to require full spectrum lighting. Now, these guys do prefer an ambient humidity in the tank around 40 to 50%, and they do like temperatures on the warmer side. They do require a warmer basking spot around 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, Achymonithers are primarily insectivores, although they will eat various other proteins like eggs, for example, when offered to them, and these guys are incredible hunters. If you've never seen an Achymonitor eat, go watch them chase down some crickets. These guys are usually laser focused and they do not stop until they get that cricket. Now, within the enclosure, you're going to need to provide them with a substrate layer deep enough for them to dig and burrow. You're also going to need to provide various hides, branches for them to climb on. Cork rounds really work great because they act as a hide and a branch, and just various other rocks for them to bask on. These guys will also use the decor inside of the enclosure to rub their femoral pores on, to mark their territory, and to get their shed off. When it comes to handling, these guys do tame down to manageable levels. They are super intelligent, and they actually have the capability of recognizing who you are. Some Ackies may require a little more training than others when it comes to handling, but through consistency, they generally, for the most part, will tame down. Now, just like many of the species on this list, Ackie monitors have the potential to live a very long time. They can live up to 15 to 20 years in captivity under the correct conditions, so again, just be prepared for a long-term commitment. So I thought I hit record the first time I did this, and I clearly did not, so I'm fresh out of work recording this. Now, number one is going to be jeweled lacerdas. Now, what is there not to like about jeweled lacerdas? They are incredible lizards. Males are this neon green color, and they have these blue spots that go down the side, which naturally contrast each other. They are cousins to these guys right here, the green keeled belly lizards, which that's always a plus because green keeleds are awesome. And they look like miniature tegus. Although I do not own a jeweled lacerda personally right now, nor have I ever owned one, they've always piqued my interest. They are amazing looking, and I will own one in the future. These guys are a bit more skittish and jumpier than most of the species on this list, but with frequent handling attempts, they will tame down. In the wild, jeweled lacerdas can be found throughout Spain and Portugal. Now, these guys are mainly insectivores, but they do eat fruits on occasion. You can supplement the fruits for crested gecko diet like Pangea, but they're mainly going to eat things like crickets, dubia roaches, waxworms, mealworms, etc. There's a bug in here. Just attacked me. I just got assaulted by a stink bug. What the heck? Jeweled lacerdas average around 2 feet in length, so the bare minimum enclosure for these guys is going to be a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure. These guys are diurnal and active during the day, so they do require full spectrum lighting, and they do like it on the warmer side. They're going to require a basking spot around 95 degrees, and the ambient tank humidity should be kept at moderate levels. Now, like everything else on this list, if these guys want a little bit more humidity, or they just want to dig, they will, so provide a deep enough substrate layer for them to dig and bury themselves. You're also going to need things like cork rounds and branches and rocks within the enclosure for them to hide on and bask on. In captivity, jeweled lacerdas have the potential to live up to 20 years, so like everything else that was listed on this list, just be prepared to own something for a very long time if you do inquire about owning a jeweled lacerda. Although where I live in the States, jeweled lacerdas aren't considered a rare species, if you will. I've always wanted one, and these guys are on my dream reptile list. Call me crazy, but I've always wanted to own one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, but thank you guys also for the recent support, coming back and making videos. I did not think I was gonna have this much support right off the rip, but you guys have been great. Thank you so much. Now, it's entirely up to you, but if you guys did enjoy the video, smash that subscribe button, hit the like button, drop a comment down below. Let me know if you agree with the list, and I'll see you in the next one.